Buddha, some people think, is masochistic. And I think we have to understand it more closely so that the Buddhist perspective doesn't become that of pessimistic. We have a different desire, a lot of confused and different desires we all do have. If I look at a beautiful flower, I just want to have it. And if I hear beautiful, music, or even chirping of the birds sometime as we come along, then we just have to listen to it and try to achieve the pleasure of listening to that bird singing as much as possible. So we have a very confused and rather aimless, very dull desires, which doesn't have any aims as such. And if you ask a person, what do you really want to have in life, then he might say, big house, beautiful big house, a car, and a wife, beautiful wife, and lovely sons and daughters, and coverage of insurance for everyone, and things like that. But even despite having all that, some people are still not happy if they are not content. Some people are still looking for something else. Some people, even whatever wealth they have possessed makes them unhappier, take them down. So if we listen to our confused desire, which doesn't have any aim, which is just which come out as a result of compulsion, and to some extent, which is also the result of some fantasies that we have in our head. If we listen to all of them, then life, instead of making us happier by achieving all that, makes us really, really unhappy. So Buddha really wants us to focus on what we want, what we can achieve in our life. He gave us option that if you go to this way, without having kind of aim, if you just keep listening to whatever your inner gossip tells you to do, then life might not take you to the satisfying conclusion we all wish to have. So he talks about the truth about the life, about everyone's life. We want to live in the world of fantasy, but he destroys that seemingly very satisfying fantasy. But then that fantasy, as being fantasy, like anything else, it's a psychedelic experience that we only have after taking some of the pick-me-up things. So that's why Buddha tells us some of the reality of life and takes our desire into a different into a different place which goes beyond what is normally our fantasies are like. So in a way, Buddha really wants us to focus on our desire. He wants us to think really deeply what we really want, what our expectations are really in life. And everything boils down to one thing: happiness. And are you happy having car, having, house, or you can be happy without them? I'm not saying all of you have to just leave your car and sell your car and become homeless. I don't mean that. But it is good to know that what we really want in life, and that's happiness, and we have to work for it. We don't have to act frantic out of our short-term realization. And I'm also not, I also don't, okay, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Buddha tells us to really consider, think deeply what we really want, and everything boils down on happiness, as I was saying. So what can we do to shorten our desires, to make our desire more knowledgeable and more aimful than aimless? If you collect the light of the sun with a magnifying glass, you can just burn a piece of paper. Likewise, if our desire is not scattered, and if we collect our desire, it becomes really powerful, really powerful. And at this point of time, our desire is kind of scattered, so we are trying to collect our desire by thinking what we really want, by understanding some of the facts that is true in life. So Buddha, in a way, is giving us the ultimate option. Buddha's teaching gives us the ultimate option, ultimate choice, ultimate optimism, ultimate optimism. So it is nowhere near pessimistic, kind of scenario. So it's not a gloomy scenario after all, if we understand the holistic kind of view of the whole thing, of the whole teaching. It is just a little jolt that Buddha gave us just to wake us up. Psychological jolt. So even when we are old, and when we think it is time for a plastic surgery, we can still have a hope. We can still, have some kind of aim. It's not all about fantasy, the life. And with all the intellect that we have, with all the resource our mind provides, it takes us beyond materialism. It takes us beyond ideology. It takes us beyond general concepts to the point where we don't have to be that depressed and that humiliated and that anger that we feel as we age, and to some degree the society is shaped as such that youngs always have the fun and old always have to stay back at home and do nothing, just feel boring. So we ourselves makes us stronger, by realizing some of the facts that is important for us to realize. And then at the end, even without the plastic surgery, we still feel graceful because we are old, and when we grow older, there is some kind of grace, come about, and we don't have to look sexually attractive, and yet still we are attractive in a way because we have this graceful. So I think Buddha's understanding gives us really foundation of some of the optimism that our society is needed at this point of time, and things like that. From staying together with friends who misguide us, our hatred, desires, and ignorance grow. With little time left to continue our studies, we don't think of Dharma, we meditate less. Our love and compassion for all sentient beings are lost and forgotten while under their sway. Sever such ties with misleading companions. The sons of the Buddhas all practice this way. So it talks about staying away from the friends' influence. In our life, influence can be good, influence can be bad. So we have to just stay away from the bad influence, but we can still be friends. And if we don't have to necessarily hate our friends who have negative viewpoints, who are most of the time pessimistic, and who just feel happy somehow, satisfied somehow, blaming in everyone, come along their life. They want to blame their parents, they want to blame their boyfriends, girlfriends, they want to blame their spouse, children, and grandchildren, I don't know. So we all have, to some degree, tendency to flip around as much as possible, so that we'll find some victim where we can, place all our blame in. And that way we feel, our ego, not we actually, feel happy. Sounds very sadistic in a way. Anyway, that's what happens in most of people's case. We just want to place our blame in somebody else, and especially when we are empowered with some law and we can always sue someone, then the blame becomes stronger and we just flip around quite often. But with the spiritual guidance, you are actually freeing yourself from that rigidity where you always have to blame somebody else to make you feel happy, to make